Let's also go across to some of our guests joining us. Deepak Vohra is former Indian diplomat, Brahma, strategic affairs expert, also with us. Deepak Vohra, do you expect that this is going to be some sort of a reminder to US that they can't really push around, certainly not India, but maybe not even their allies like EU anymore?
Right. Well, thank you very much, ma'am. Always a pleasure to be with you, to learn from you. And of course, you have one of the finest minds in the world sitting right there next to you. I can see Dr. Cheleni, he's brilliant. You don't need me. He's a one-man expert on this. He can handle it. Well, let me put it to you like this. I just heard your colleague saying that you can expect loyalty, etc. She was brilliant. I just wanted to say in diplomacy, we are taught if you want loyalty in international relations, go buy a dog. You won't get any loyalty.
Yeah.
Now, why are we signing this treaty? Then we've talked about creating jobs in Europe, where 6 or 7% is the unemployment rate EU-wide. How many jobs will be created? How much more will they be able to sell to us? Ma'am, I don't know about Dr. Cheleni or about you. In the last 20 years, I have not bought anything, electronics, car, mobiles, made in Europe. Even the cars are made in China, European brands. So it's going to be a tough thing for them to penetrate the Indian market. The most important thing about this deal, the first that we are signing with 27, I've negotiated two myself. It's going to take a while, 6 months for the legal vetting, etc. Then the deal will be signed. And then the trap, any one of the 27 EU parliament says no, as they have done to the Mercosur, Mercosur, the Latin American grouping deal. It's stuck in court somewhere. Out. Happy birthday. Begin all over. It's already taken us 22 years. Europe's money is gone. Europe's, what can I say, their defense capability has gone. The arrogance is slowly disappearing. And now they're making all these sweet, wonderful noises. However, the message to the rest of the world, India has arrived. 27 countries on one side, signing a deal with one country on the other side. That in itself sends a message that you can't mess around with India. And if Donald Trump wakes up and understands, wakes up and understands that Miss Wonderland or whatever her name is, and Mr. Costa, Antonio Costa, who's by the way from Goan origin, he has an overseas citizen of India card, so he doesn't need a visa to come here. I've met him, I've seen his house in Margao, in Goa. So all I would say is that this is a message, 27 and 1 on this side. Who wins? The world will understand. Now you don't mess around with India, man. That is the biggest thing. The rest of it, Professor Cheleni will explain to you. We'll sell more of this, more of that, etc. More wines, terrific. But I prefer the Indian ones. So let's see what happens in the years to come. And let's see if all the 27 European parliaments approve this deal.
No, Brahma Cheleni, it's actually interesting. This is a big deal, and something that is opening up India in a big way to a big market, and also opening a big market for Indian goods. But there is less focus on what actually becomes more expensive and cheaper. Even for an average Indian, there is more, a thinking on what this does vis-a-vis the new facet of Trump tariffs that we're witnessing, or tariff tyranny that we're witnessing. So, what is your sense? Will it have any impact on that, or are we overstating the impact of an EU-India deal?
Shivani, first to underscore what Ambassador Vohra said, in fact, things that he explained underscored the reason why this has been dubbed the mother of all deals. It's the scale of it, representing 25% of global GDP and 1/3 of world trade, explains why this India-EU FTA is so important geopolitically and geo-economically. This agreement transforms India-EU relationship from a transactional partnership into a strategic pillar of the 21st century global order. And in a world which is characterized by polycrises, this deal is more than a commercial contract. For both sides, it's an insurance policy. For the EU, it secures a foothold in the world's fastest growing major economy, and it helps Brussels to de-risk its supply chains. And for India, it reduces dependency on both the US market and the Chinese market. So it's a win-win for both sides. But to answer your question, if you look at the broader aspects of what India is doing, India has signed FTAs with a number of countries, and now in the case of EU with a bloc. But all these economies are export-driven economies.
Yeah.
India is an import-dependent economy. India's imports are far higher than exports. So the question that arises, and in fact, some studies that have been done on India's FTAs with, say, South Korea, Japan, ASEAN, they have shown that these FTAs have actually, far from helping India's economic growth, they have only opened up in a one-sided way the Indian market to these other economies. So the question that really remains is that while geopolitically, this is a very significant deal between the EU and India, and will arm India with leverage vis-a-vis the US, and certainly it positions the EU and India as a democratic counterweight to the Chinese-centric state trade model, while also seeking to blunt Trump's weaponized trade strategy. Yet, the question that really will be examined in the coming years is whether this mother of all deals really helped boost India's economic growth.
Yeah. No, obviously, economic growth is what India is seeking. And I think it's been very single-minded in ensuring, one, that it is not taken advantage of, as in the case of the US negotiations, but also that India grows with any agreement that it does. But before I go back to Deepak Vohra, Brahma Chaleni, very quickly, can we expect that just because EU is doing a deal with India, which is also for its own interest, and as you outlined, economic interest, can we really read into the fact that EU is willing to not side with US anymore on some of the things that US is wanting to do or the pressure that it's trying to build? At the end of the day, they are allies and they are long time tested allies. They're not going to pick India over US if push comes to shove.
That's a very good question, Shivani. The EU very much is part of the Western Bloc. But what's interesting now is that given the friction between Brussels and Washington, it has not sought to press New Delhi to subsume itself within a rigid Western Bloc. Rather, the EU is internalizing, if not embracing, India's long practice strategy of multi-alignment. It is seeking to underpin its strategic autonomy the way India is also trying to protect its strategic autonomy. In other words, the EU is adapting to a world in which power is diffuse and autonomy is prized by each economy or each country. And this agreement with India reflects a growing European recognition that durable partnerships in the 21st century will be built not on exclusivity, not on any block basis, but on overlapping interests and shared resilience. So for Europe, this marks a quiet but consequential shift. And I think the EU's own language of strategic autonomy has often remained abstract. But partnering with India operationalizes this strategic autonomy that the EU is now of late emphasizing.
Okay. Deepak Vohra, your sense, in other words, the Indian public would be keen to know, tomorrow if there's an important issue that India is seeking support on, will EU, quote unquote, vote for Indian interests even away from what US dictates maybe?
It's a very good question. Does a trade deal mean you become politically buddies?
Yeah, greater friends, yes. Yeah.
We have a deal with ASEAN. We have a free trade deal with Japan, with South Korea. They don't support us all the time. ASEAN, not at all. If it was a question of look at China, look at India, I know where their preferences lie. I've served in 3 ASEAN countries, so I know what their priorities are. However, having said that, ma'am, it is also true that it becomes that much more, shall we say, embarrassing for the other fellow to blatantly oppose us. On Kashmir, you know what the EU's voting patterns have been. May I say something to you, ma'am? I'm sure Professor Chaleni knows this. There is this woman, Kaya, what is her name? Kaya Kalas, who is the deputy to... Yes, she's the deputy to Miss Wonderland. And she, in September of last year, please see what she said. We will use a carrot and stick policy with India, as though we are a dhubi ka donkey. We will use carrot and stick policy because India is buying Russian oil. India doesn't understand European values. India doesn't value human rights. This woman who's now singing our praises. Obviously, she was prime minister of tiny Estonia with a military of 2,000 people and a population of 1.5 million. And she's now the head of the common security and foreign policy of the EU and the deputy to the lady, to the president. So their mindset will take a while to change. The challenge really is that when you deal with the, I've been posted there, ma'am, I know. It's a viper's nest, Brussels. There's so many fellows sitting there. Any one of them can get up and say, sorry. There are 27 vetoes, the way it is structured.
Sure.
So they will certainly like to look at India as long as the market is open. I conclude, Professor Cheleni, my buddy, Billubhai Clinton, I lovingly call him Billubhai Clinton, Bill Clinton. We are friends. 90s, he was asked, why should we vote for you? His classic response, it's the economy, stupid. And their economies in Europe are crumbling at this time. They are looking, after Trump has sort of done all kinds of funny things, they are now looking to this huge Indian market. China is blocked for them.
Okay.
This is what I see.